she poisoned my food at my retirement party. Even now, saying those words out loud feels unreal. That night was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of my life, the end of 38 years of work, the beginning of peace. The kind of evening a woman remembers with gratitude. Instead, it became the night I realized my own daughter-in-law might have been trying to destroy me in front of a room full of witnesses. I saw her hand move over my plate. I saw something small disappear into my food. And in that same instant, I understood that every strange comment she had made for months about my memory, my finances, my future had not been random. They had been preparation. What she didn't know, what she was completely unaware of, was that I had seen her. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse her. I smiled, kept my hands steady, and quietly switched my plate before anyone noticed. 20 minutes later, her own mother was the one starting to collapse at my retirement party. My name is Susan Garcia. I'm 64 years old, a vidove. And until that night, I believed retirement would be the beginning of a quieter life. If you're watching this, tell me where you're from and what time it is there. I read every comment, because this is not just a story about betrayal. It's a story about the moment your instincts save you, and the moment the people trying to rewrite your life realize you were never as easy to control as they thought. Now let me tell you how everything actually began. To understand why that moment at the party felt so chilling, you need to understand what that night meant to me and what Melissa had been doing long before it ever happened. For 38 years, I worked for the Phoenix Unified School District. I wasn't in front of a classroom, but my job mattered. I managed budgets, audited programs, tracked funding, and made sure the numbers behind the schools stayed strong enough for everything else to keep functioning. It was the kind of work most people never noticed unless something went wrong. And maybe that suited me. I've always been the woman behind the scenes, the one who keeps things standing while everyone else gets the applause. When my husband Miguel died, Daniel was only 10. There was no one else to carry the weight. I raised my son alone, worked full-time, kept our home together, and did everything I could to make sure he never felt the full force of what we had lost. So when Daniel grew up kind, successful, and loving, I told myself every sacrifice had been worth it. When he married Melissa 4 years ago, I truly wanted to welcome her. At first, she was charming, smart, polished, confident in a way that made people pay attention. But over the past year, something about her had begun to unsettle me. Not because she was openly cruel. That would have been easy to spot. It was subtler than that. Questions about my pension. Questions about whether the house was paid off. Questions about my savings. My will. Who would make decisions if something happened. Then came the comments about memory. If I misplaced my glasses, she would smile and say, "That's why it's good to plan ahead." If I forgot some minor detail, she'd mention how quickly things can change at your age. And she always seemed to say these things when Daniel was close enough to hear. At first, I brushed it off. Then I overheard her on the patio one evening saying, "We just need one clean incident." I told myself maybe it was work. Maybe it was nothing. But something in me had already begun keeping score. By the time my retirement party arrived, I wasn't paranoid. I was paying attention. And sometimes, paying attention is the only thing that keeps you safe. The party itself was beautiful, in the simple way meaningful things often are. It was held in a small community event hall not far from downtown Phoenix. with warm string lights across the ceiling, white tablecloths on the tables, and a banner stretched across the back wall congratulating me for 38 years of service. Old coworkers came all time. Retired administrators came. A few former students, now adults, came to thank me for programs I had helped protect decades earlier. For a little while, I let myself feel what I was supposed to feel: pride, relief, gratitude. Daniel had helped organize everything, and seeing him smile at me from near the stage should have been enough to make the night perfect. Melissa looked elegant too, moving through the room like she belonged at the center of it, greeting people, making sure everything appeared seamless. But even then, the old unease never fully left me. During a toast, she spoke about how important it is to have support as we get older. Her mother, Linda Carter, was there too, dressed sharply, smiling too much, asking the same kinds of questions Melissa always asked about retirement. Transition, family guidance. Even at my own celebration, I felt the same pattern pressing in around me. The buffet opened. People lined up for food, and Melissa herself handed me a plate, telling me to make sure I tried the salmon. I sat down near the center of the room while Daniel spoke again from the stage. It should have been an ordinary moment. It should have been safe. Then I caught the movement in the reflection of a silver serving spoon on the table. A hand above my plate. Melissa's hand. Quick. Controlled. Practiced. Something dropped into the food. When I lifted my eyes, she was already looking at me. Watching, not warmly, not casually, but intently. Waiting. I cannot explain that kind of knowing except to say this. Sometimes the body understands danger before the mind is ready to name it. In that second, every question she had asked, every comment about my decline, every carefully planted doubt came rushing together into one clear truth. She expected me to eat that plate, and whatever she had put there was meant to make something happen. I did not confront her because I understood something else just as quickly. A crowded room. A retirement celebration. Dozens of witnesses if I reacted emotionally. If I pointed and accused without proof, I would look unstable, confused. Exactly what she had been building toward. So I did the only thing I could do. I stayed calm. And when Linda sat down beside me, distracted by Daniel's speech, I quietly switched our plates. Melissa saw Linda start eating from the wrong one. The confusion on her face lasted only a second, but it was enough to tell me I had not imagined any of it. Enough to tell me the danger had been real. Enough to tell me her plan was no longer unfolding the way she intended. For the first 10 or 15 minutes after the switch, nothing happened. That may have been the worst part. Waiting. Watching Linda laugh, talk, drink wine, and eat from the plate that had originally been mine while pretending I was not counting every second. Across the room, Melissa tried to act normal, but she wasn't circulating the way she had earlier. She stayed close to the buffet, glancing toward our table again and again. She was watching her mother now, not me. That alone told me more than words ever could. Then it began. Linda blinked several times, rubbed her temple, and said she felt strange. Her speech slowed. Her posture changed. When she reached for water, her hand missed the glass the first time. Within minutes, the room had shifted from celebration to alarm. Daniel rushed over. Guests began whispering. Melissa dropped to her mother's side and played the worried daughter. But panic had already broken through the edges of her composure. Linda tried to stand and nearly fell. Someone called paramedics. Robert Jenkins, an old colleague of mine and a retired police officer, took control of the situation in the calm way men like him do when everyone else begins to unravel. While Linda was being examined, Melissa made the first move I had been half expecting all night. She started talking about the plate, not directly, not loudly, just enough to let the idea enter the room. Maybe the plates got mixed up. Maybe there was some confusion. Maybe I had been acting strange. By the time Daniel called me later from the hospital, the narrative was already forming. Linda had apparently eaten from my plate by accident. Doctors believed she had suffered a sedative reaction. Melissa was suggesting I had mixed things up. Robert sat with me in the nearly empty hall afterward and listened while I told him everything, the months of comments. The questions about my money. The phone call. The food. The switch. He didn't dismiss me. He didn't look doubtful. He looked angry in the quiet, controlled way of someone seeing a pattern take shape. He told me to preserve the plate, not to accuse Melissa. Not yet. Just preserve it. Because if she was trying to build a case that I was becoming confused, a public incident like this could have been the clean incident she needed. If I had eaten the sedative, begun slurring my words, or losing focus in front of a room full of witnesses, then someone else had gotten sick from the same table. How easy would it have been to say I had become careless, unstable, dangerous? How easy would it have been to question whether I should still control my own money, my own house, my own life? Sitting there in that half-empty hall with my retirement banner still hanging behind me, I realized something so cold and deliberate that it made my hands shake. She had not been trying to embarrass me. She had been trying to create evidence against me. And because I noticed one small movement in the reflection of a spoon, she had failed. The next morning, I called the attorney Robert recommended, Karen Whitmore, an estate and elder law lawyer in Phoenix. By then, my instincts had hardened into strategy. Karen listened carefully as I told her everything. And she didn't waste time pretending the situation was merely awkward or misunderstood. She said the pattern of behavior Melissa had shown questions about finances, suggestions about my decline, discussion of power of attorney. The incident at the party was consistent with cases where someone was trying to establish grounds for guardianship. Hearing the word out loud made the whole thing feel even uglier. Guardianship. A legal process that could strip me of control over my finances, property, medical decisions, everything. If a court believed I was no longer capable of managing my own life, suddenly every helpful conversation Melissa had forced into my kitchen made terrible sense. Karen told me to secure my accounts, update legal documents, and most importantly, say nothing to Melissa. If Melissa believed her story was working, she might become careless. We had the plate tested through a private lab. A few days later, the results came back exactly as Karen and I both feared: a prescription sedative, the kind that could cause dizziness, confusion, cognitive impairment. Exactly the kind of symptoms Melissa had been describing for months. Exactly the kind of symptoms that would make an older woman appear unstable in public. By then, Melissa had already started spreading her version of events. Robert heard from people at the district that she was telling them I had seemed confused and had mixed up the plates. Daniel eventually admitted she was considering filing for guardianship. That was the moment I understood she was not retreating. She was doubling down. But then the lab results were shared with the right people. Suddenly, the story changed. Now it wasn't a confused retiree causing a harmless mix-up. Now it was a documented sedative in the exact plate Melissa had handed to me. Karen told their lawyer what we had. Melissa's side began to wobble. The guardianship talk stopped almost overnight. Daniel's certainty cracked too. For the first time, he asked me if I had really seen Melissa touch the plate. When I said yes, he went quiet in a way that told me he was finally starting to see his wife as she actually was, not as he wanted her to be. It didn't feel victorious. That's the part people never understand. There was no triumph in watching my son realize he may have built his marriage around a lie. There was only clarity. Cold, painful clarity. Melissa had wanted one clean incident. In the end, she got one. Just not the one she planned. Melissa never moved forward with the guardianship petition. She couldn't. Not after the lab confirmed the sedative. Not after the narrative she had been shaping for months started collapsing under actual evidence. Daniel eventually told me she was staying with her mother for a while. He apologized too quietly, awkwardly, but sincerely for doubting me, for listening to the slow poison of suggestion until even he wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Linda recovered. The legal protections Karen put in place remain there. My accounts are secure. My independence is documented. And the plate that was supposed to become the centerpiece of my downfall became the thing that protected me instead. Retirement still did not begin the way I imagined. It began with betrayal, suspicion, and the terrifying realization that the people sitting closest to your table can sometimes be the ones trying hardest to take your life away from you piece by piece. But it also began with something else. Proof that I was still exactly who I had always been. Careful, capable, clear-minded enough to see danger before it swallowed me. Money reveals who people really are. But control over someone else's future reveals something even darker. I didn't need revenge. I needed truth. And once truth surfaced, Melissa's entire plan started to unravel on its own. So let me ask you something. If you had seen what I saw that night, would you have confronted her on the spot or done exactly what I did and waited? If this story meant something to you, don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember this. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is trust the quiet voice inside you before anyone else has proof. Because sometimes that voice is the only reason you survive what was meant to destroy you.